Change is everywhere in Atlanta. Freshly painted houses all over, a park in the works so kids can play, new apartments where people can live and grow. It hasn't always been this way.
These apartments were very old, and not only were they old, they breeded a lot of negative energy. Drug dealing, illegal alcohol. This particular area was the highest crime stats for the entire community. So with this being demolished, it will create a new beginning for this part of the neighborhood.
Out with the old, in with the new in Mechanicsville. Where the McDaniel Glen housing projects once stood, there are now brand new apartments.
People are back in the buildings and they're excited. They have a beautiful place to live. They have a fabulous view, easy access. So then versus now is that that negative element is moved. Now you have people who are here for the long haul, people who want to be here.
The rebuilding in Mechanicsville is part of a bigger plan in Atlanta, a plan to bring back blighted neighborhoods and by doing so, change the environment.
I believe in the broken window theory. I believe that if you start in one place and you clean it up, if it's deteriorating and you clean it up, when you have a broken window, that it's like wildfire, it catches. People begin to get the spirit, and we've seen crime decrease. We've seen a neighborhood taking responsibility for public safety in its neighborhood. Our police department working very, very closely with our youth. So we have really seen a number of successes in Mechanicsville.
New housing brings increased pride to the neighborhood, and police officers are seeing the positive effects.
The biggest thing about it, notice, is that the crime in this area where these weed and seed communities were have went down quite a bit. In the old weed and seed communities, we had a bunch of drug problems, and that was based on some of the old apartments and some of the old structures that we had in the area that, you know, that helped these drug dealers do their business out there. But now that those old projects and old housing building, they're all torn down now, and they're building new buildings. So, and most of all, the residents have really jumped on our side as far as calling in and telling on these people.
That wasn't the case back in 2006, when neighbors often kept to themselves out of fear.
And this is going to be in the Pittsburgh community area, which we get a lot of calls. We made a lot of arrests in this area here. But this time of day, between 4 and 6, this is when people start coming out, doing their little drug activity. Everybody's getting off work, school kids are out.
Some older and rundown homes in Atlanta's Pittsburgh community have been replaced by a brand new apartment complex.
This is a much, much better looking complex now, and these people that were living in the old complex didn't have a sense of hope because everything was old. They felt like they was in some dungeon or something like that.
But all is not perfect. Right across the street from the new apartments is an old factory, which is now an eyesore.
This building has caught on fire a couple of times, and it's causing a lot of problems for us. We're hoping that the investors somebody will come over here and invest in this building and try to make another complex out of it.
Financially investing in a community is a big part of environmental change.
We have certain areas of the city that we've identified as priorities where we really want to do what we can on behalf of the city of Atlanta to incentivize major redevelopment if we can.
But gathering investors is often easier said than done.
We're all experiencing a bit of a setback in today's economy. A few years ago, you know, when we were starting on some new projects, for example, in Vine City, we had the wind at our back, and even, you know, some downtown projects, Northwest Atlanta, we had a bit of the wind at our backs. And right now I'm referring to the health of the real estate market and even the health of the capital markets. Today, we don't have the wind at our back, and the capital markets are very difficult. It's very hard to get money for a project.
In Vine City, one major community project is well underway, the brand new Vine City Park.
Well, I know the park will accomplish one thing. The neighborhood park is something that the community wanted to see. We got together several years ago and said, what is the one thing that this neighborhood needed? And it was green space.
The construction of the park is impacting the area around it in a positive way.
Things have changed in the neighborhood dealing with crime drastically, and it has changed for the good. When you talk about the park area in general, one of the border streets of the park, Grave Street, was one of the strongholds for our drug dealers. Now, because we was able to acquire land, tear down many of the houses they was using to do their business in, we have moved it, hopefully completely out of the neighborhood, but just like everything else, it's a give and push when it comes to crime.
Radio check, this Miss Davis, Miss White, give me a 10-4.
But not everything has gone as planned. In 2006, the Parent Patrol roamed the streets of Vine City before and after school, making sure kids got where they needed to go safely.
The Parent Patrol was not able to implement the beginning of the school year. We had some change of leadership with the fiscal agent, and which means they were not able to organize to be able to move the project forward. So it's not as if we didn't have parents on the street. We just didn't have them on the street as in a Parent Patrol way.
The funding has come together to put the Parent Patrol back on the streets beginning in January 2009, and even expand it to other neighborhoods. Its semester-long absence taught organizers a lesson.
You just learn to build sustainability day one of your project. That way, if something happens, if leadership changes, or if a person changes, that doesn't mean your activity has to stop. And so I think we learn from that to be able to make sure these things continue to go on. And so we're trying to make sure the steps are in place. So things like the Parent Patrol, the infrastructure is there to keep them going, no matter who's in place for a particular agency and moving those things forward.
It takes much more than money to transform a neighborhood.
It takes time, it takes commitment from the residents who are living there, and it also takes a commitment and understanding for future residents who may want to move there. And it's very hard for you to come in as a person or an organization with employees who do not live in this community, even though you want the best for the community, but the people in that community are not ready for change. So slowly we began to see this community want change, embrace change, and after we began to see that, we started seeing the change become sustainable because it was owned by the people who lived in that community.
Change has been slow in some places. Back in 2006, new homes sat right across the street from run-down ones.
It's kind of strange to see a high-priced house sit next to 3 or 4 abandoned houses. So obviously there's a lot of plans for building, which you can see. On one side of the street, it's looking kind of bad. The other side is looking like Hollywood over there a little bit.
It still looks the same. Burglary problems force some investors to keep new homes boarded up, and some homes are still in states of disrepair, but the positive energy still flows.
You'll see a lot of that in the area. But I think as time goes on, they're going to catch on, and hopefully some of these property owners jump on the bandwagon and make their property a little bit better. We're going to make sure we protect them and anybody else that need police services. So hopefully in this short period of time, hopefully this area will be good to go.
Neighborhood leaders have learned from the past as they prepare for the future.
When you're working in the community, the best thing to do is to be flexible, to understand that nothing is laid in stone, because at the end of the day, you're still working with residents. You're working with residents that have lives, that have problems, that have dreams of their own. You may have that plan laid to the T, but there's still so many factors that you can't control that you must be very flexible.
Change has come to Atlanta neighborhoods, but there's more to do.
Less drugs, less crime. It's not over. We still understand there's a battle to be fought. But the difference is that we have new equipment, we have new uniforms, we have new ideas that will help us to fight this battle in a different form, because now it's a different battle. We have learned that through obstacles come wonderful solutions, and that's what we work from.